All right. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, 2000 Hours Saved, How RFID Revolutionized Accuracy, Compliance, and Productivity at DENSO. My name is Bethany Dean. I'm the Media and Communication Specialist here at AIM. And before we get into today's presentation, I wanted to give a brief introduction into AIM. AIM is the global industry alliance for stakeholders of RFID, barcoding, smart devices, and other automatic identification and data capture technologies, and supporting blockchain, IoT, and RTLS applications. We represent all industries and organizations that use, implement, resell, or develop technology. We are essential to enabling adoption, growth, and interoperability to those who depend on accurate, available, and identifiable data. If you would like additional information, you can reach out to us at info@aimglobal.org. I also like to quickly review our antitrust policy. It is the policy of AIM to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM activities shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. And just a few other housekeeping notes before we get into today's presentation. All registrants are muted upon entering the webinar, but we still encourage your participation. To send a question, select the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. We will also be answering the questions submitted through the registration page. We'll get to as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Also, a recording of the webinar will be available in the coming days to those that have registered. And with that being said, I will hand it over to today's speakers and let them introduce themselves.
Good morning, everybody. I am Jonathan Taluki. I am from DENSO International America up in Southfield, Michigan. I've been with the company for a number of years. I'm in the finance and accounting department, and most recently I've been involved with the digital transformation team with finance-driven initiatives across the region. Thank you for attending today. I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. I'm part of the sales team, sales, business development, and partnerships at DENSO. We're the division, the sales division based in Los Angeles. And we're real excited to share the results from what we've been working on for the past year or so.
Thanks, Kevin. Joe Hurl here with RFID Know. We're a manufacturer of RFID equipment, specifically working with antenna technology on the UHF RFID side. And we've been engaged with DENSO across this project from the beginning, its conception through pilot and implementation. So happy to be here with you guys today and joining this.
I'd like to ask a few questions here of the audience just to gauge some of the background and working with RFID across the board here. What is the biggest challenge in maintaining your operational efficiency? Human error, time spent on the counts, and lack of the visibility. All very good points. These are items that we struggled with within DENSO, and we're trying to address, bring in automation and efficiency into our count operations.
And for those, I believe the audience cannot see the results here, but the top by far was lack of real-time visibility at 44%. And then we second and third place tied really for human error and time spent. So good feedback. As Jonathan said, these are the same issues that are being addressed across the digital transformation at DENSO as well. So we're going to do a couple more polls just to get a gauge on the audience.
On average, how much time does your team spend each week on any sort of manual inventory or compliance tasks?
If we can close this poll, let's see the results. So again, very interesting. On average, 62% of participants said 5 to 20 hours. We had 23% said less than 5 hours. And we had 8% that for both 20 to 50 hours and more than 50 hours. And again, this varies depending on what you're doing, how you're using RFID to enable these tasks and what your manual task looks like, how much redundancy is built into that. But that's good to know, 5 to 20 hours each week is by far what most people are seeing. So thank you.
How familiar are you with the RFID technology itself? And this will be the last poll, guys and gals, before we get into the use case that we went through with DENSO and share some of the successes with you. Very familiar. I would expect nothing less with an AIM audience here. So very good to see. Exploring learning was 22%, and the rest 78% was very familiar. So personally, I had not worked with RFID technology from an implementation standpoint within DENSO prior. I know what it is. I know industry-wide it's very common, but from a finance and accounting perspective, it was all very new to me. So I was really excited to see the performance, the accuracy, the efficiency, and it really helped us streamline the compliance requirements from the IFRS and accounting practices, as well as improve our end user experience across the region with some of our quote unquote administrative compliance tasks. So as I mentioned, I work for DENSO International America at the corporate headquarters in Southfield, Michigan. But DENSO is a global company. We are a leader in mobility and factory innovations. We pride ourselves on our core commitments: efficiency, quality, compliance, sustainability. Our global headquarters is in Japan. We have an annual revenue in excess of $40 billion and over 160,000 associates worldwide across many countries. Mainly, it is a tier one auto supplier. We also manufacture and sell RFID equipment to retail consumers, along with non-automotive technologies as well. So I am responsible regionally in North America for the fixed asset processes. I am over our shared service center that involves policy, procedure, system, all things fixed assets. And one of our struggles was, being a shared service center, having to coordinate with all of the manufacturing facilities across the North American continent here. Some of that was not being able to interact with associates face to face. Even if we were face to face during the COVID times, we all know we couldn't get face to face. So those challenges were something we were trying to overcome. We needed to increase our compliance, we needed to increase our visibility, and we needed to increase our efficiency. We do need to do an annual count of all of our assets each year. And part of that is somebody has to physically go out and verify that the asset is on the plant floor. It's at our location. That drives our property taxes, that drives our balance sheets, our income statements, etc. We focused on DENSO Manufacturing, Tennessee. It's our largest U.S. plant. And there are 25,000 capital items, 25,000 assets at our DMTN facility alone. The manual checking of each of these items was significant man hours, in excess of 2,500. Accuracy was variable. Some departments did a more thorough job than others. We certainly recognize that were governance gaps during our audits. We certainly recognize there were times when a new department manager would take over and we would have to correct the books. And all of these items that we were observing were opportunities for us to improve the efficiency and our accuracy and leverage automation. So in the newly formed digital transformation team, this was one of my focus areas, since I'm so close to the process. And we worked with our counterpart here at DPAM, Kevin. We worked with RFID No, Joe, here with us today, and we went from a conceptual framework all the way through the pilot and into production. Now we are live, and this is something that we've seen some amazing results from. Lots of positive comments. So we introduced the RFID technology to all the end users. We're very focused on the efficiency piece because that was the main cost to the company. It was the main frustration with users. And RFID gave us the ability to scan the assets if we were within a 25-foot range within our environment. We have a lot of electronics in our manufacturing, a lot of automations, and it was a very consistent 100% capture rate at 25 foot or less. We had the ability to go further if there was direct line of sight with the UHF scanners. We were also able to leverage some data captures and integrate them with our in-house fixed asset management system. That was a hurdle for us. We don't have the ability to change the global system templates. So we had to work around some of these requirements on both the back end and the front end in order to leverage the technology and meet the global requirements for DENSO group companies. We use some additional digital transformation tools, ETL tools, to connect the scan data to our system and make the user experience that much better. We focused for the pilot initially on our Plant 101, which is the ES division. It was originally here in Maryville, Tennessee, focused on electronics, starters, alternators. Over the years, product groups have changed, but we still call it the ES division. We selected 20 departments and 2,207 assets. That gave us a good confidence that we would see multiple areas of manufacturing, everything from die cast to automated assembly lines to circuit boards, etc. Our user acceptance testing was conducted in the third and fourth quarter this past year through this process. 99% of the assets were successfully located using this process. Nothing but positive end user feedback across the board. They all, thanked us for taking this initiative. It was much easier to do their process. They could visualize the data. Intuitive menus were available. And of course, it's a significantly faster process than working from a printed Excel sheet and checking the boxes one by one. Management approved our go-ahead with this project to roll out on a widespread first phase. We took some quick action to implement this process. All of Tennessee has now been 100% tagged and is performing the RFID inventory scan this year. We have also enabled this same process along the same timeline at our Athens, Tennessee plant and also our Manufacturing Canada plant. Pictured here is the DENSO M80 handheld on the right side. And then we also have the DENSO SP1 UHF scanner in the middle. And the roll of tags that we chose to stick out among the others that are on our equipment was the bright yellow color for us to help identify what was an asset versus what was not an asset on the floor. There is some qualitative results and benefits as well, not just the man-hour savings. And this was key from accounting side. That is where the compliance and some of the other insights come into play. But overall, we experienced a 2158 man-hour savings within Tennessee. That was originally an estimate, but it has come to fruition. 95% was a conservative approach for our business case for success of scanning, and we have met or exceeded that in each of the departments that have scanned. Using the RFID technology and having the insights into that data off-site, we no longer have to do Gemba checks or on-site verification for these. We know every RFID tagged item, when it was scanned, which device it was scanned on which day, which time. We're also able to capture the GPS location and store it in our metadata. So if we have an asset that is on the books in Southfield, Michigan, but in reality it is sitting in Tennessee, we can see that data. That allows us to be compliant with our property tax filings. If the asset's on DIM's books in Southfield, but it's actually located at Tennessee, we need to be paying property taxes to Tennessee. And that may or may not have been fully compliant before because it relied on user data input when the asset was capitalized or moved. Already mentioned the improved associate experience and reduced frustrations. Looking at the data from year over year during our counts, we're able to see which assets were counted the prior year and not counted the current year. We're also able to see which assets were taken off the books from the prior year to the current year. While we're scanning plant-wide, region-wide, we will be picking up those disposed asset tags. So at the end of the count, when we're investigating and performing some analysis, we can see which quote unquote disposed items are still on site and follow up with those departments. That is non-compliance when we have that scenario. Property taxes would still be due, but they're not on the books and getting filed properly. We have stronger governance around this entire process. We know there are no departments that are not doing inventory. We have audit-ready records. We have a much stronger understanding of movement of assets within our plants. We have much stronger understanding of where they are across the region. And as I mentioned, this property tax compliance was one of the founding ideas of building into this process so that we were not out of compliance at any location throughout the region. So I spoke a little bit about digital transformation, and I know that's a key term that is thrown around a lot, just like AI nowadays. What digital transformation is it allows us to automate using operational user end tools. Finance and accounting doesn't necessarily need an out-of-the-box solution that is often heavy on the investment side and heavy on the labor side getting set up. It allows us to go directly to the data, build our own workflows that we manage and own, and connect what we need on the process side to what we need on the financial and reporting side. So we chose to use RFID scanners, DENSO manufactured, of course. We are DENSO. We're using data feeds from multiple systems in order to connect our legacy systems to middleware, to visualizing tool systems, and then an additional one that allows the end user to take advantage of some further automation. So this is a little bit difficult diagram to look at, but let me walk through it. We have the RFID scanner that is the starting point for all the departments. They will scan and they will click save on the Valid Point app. Valid Point and Motion View are both systems that are owned and ran by Midmo Company. Valid Point is their Android operating system and Motion View is their cloud database. So once they scan on the scanner, it uploads to Motion View. We have APIs that are set up to feed Domo. It is an ETL visualization tool, and that allows the users to see their data in real time. It allows the management to see the results in real time. Once they turn the scanner in and they're done scanning, they don't have access to the data otherwise. This is their user access where they can see that. We're also feeding the same data to a system called Ultrix. It's very similar to Domo. It's an ETL tool, but it excels on the X and Y axis within a database. That's where they come up with their name, UltraYX. That is a workflow tool that we are able to basically go out line by line from an input, capture the results from Motion View through the API that's live on call, and fill out that report that's necessary for the end user to complete. That report was downloaded from our fixed asset management system and manually filled out one by one in our prior process. Now, anything that is tagged is automatically pre-populated for them by uploading that file in Ultrix and downloading it at the end of this process. Not 100% of our assets are tagged. Certainly anything that is tagged and not scanned, they need to do some additional work. They have to manually confirm that, yes, it's not here. They may have to, investigate if items are off-site getting recalibrated or rebuilt. And then we have the intangibles and the items that are just plain not tagged. They still have to do the manual work of reporting the results on those. Fortunately, greater than 90% of our assets within the DENSO North American region are machinery and equipment, tools and jigs, dies, tools, molds, computer hardware, all stuff that is required under policy to be tagged, and it is tagged. Once they do their small level of manual updates to that file, they're able to upload in the FAM system. So in essence, they went from walking the floor for hours or days in large departments, finding these items one by one, to making a 20-minute pass through their area and then confirming the results. Significant time savings. Being my first major project across this enterprise here within DENSO, not just a finance and corporate project, I had a lot of lessons learned. Collaboration across all the teams is key. Having those subject matter experts at each site is key. Having the right partners engaged is key. A simpler user interface is going to lead to a higher adoption rate. early training and continued hypercare support past production go live is key. It's something we certainly had on our schedule and supported, but it continued for months after initially expected. Everyone has their own schedule. Everyone has their own day-to-day work, and some of these mandatory annual tasks take lower priority. So have to be prepared to work with many users across a longer timeline than you may initially anticipate. Standardizing everything is key. Asset naming conventions, tag number conventions, the size of the tags, the printers you're going to use, the scanners you're going to use, etc. That helps set a positive future environment. If exceptions are made at each location, it is more of a sticky note process that can't be followed. So standardization is absolutely huge. We're currently looking at ways to leverage our AGVs or robots that drive around the plant floor and take inventory automatically. So we can compare week to week and month to month records and confirm if we've had disposal forms or sales forms recording asset movement, transfers between departments. We're going from a reactive once a year count where we update the books to a proactive approach to managing the movement and our actual capital figures on our balance sheet. We're considering portal scanners as well in areas such as spare parts, and then leveraging those portal scanners at any doorway to track asset movement between one location in the plant and another, or leaving the plant entirely. RFID has delivered measurable efficiency, significant, much stronger governance around these asset capital processes, and improved associate experience overall. This supports our digital transformation goals for automation and standardization within North America and global DENSO. Certainly, RFID is the future of fixed asset management across our organization as we go forward.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's great. So, as Jonathan was saying, even as DENSO looks to take this forward, we step back a little bit and start looking at where you might use RFID, and this is a little more generic, but a useful look at crossing industrial and enterprise uses of RFID. Typically on the industrial side, we're working with automation companies that would be working through PLCs, automation systems, things on the actual production floor, and in this case, very, very applicable towards DENSO, where you're moving in materials, you're doing things with those materials. So you've got the manufacturing, you're doing WIP tracking, you're in this case, we'll talk about containers and other things, right? So it's not always just the goods as they move through the production process, but also all the other assets that are owned, the tools, the containers, other things that are used through that process, either within a particular facility or moving between suppliers or moving between internal facilities or different services when things go out to paint or et cetera. So lots of areas to track things through this industrial side, all the way through the finished manufacturing, finished logistics, outbound shipment, then getting into warehousing, distribution, if relevant. And finally, we're seeing a lot on the enterprise side when things go into retail environments. So you get into orders fulfillment, you get into inventory control, and even loss prevention in some cases. So as we work with DENSO, part of this is identifying where are other ways to utilize the RFID infrastructure, where are other ways to add value across their organization, bringing in the proper partners to DENSO to assist them with those applications. Again, just a high level, Jonathan covered, I think, a lot of this. Digital transformation, right? Getting that information into a system that gives you the data, the visibility, the ability to do things with that data. We say AI friendly here. We talk about end-to-end visibility, but it's actionable data, right? Things you can take the data, you can derive value out of that. So starting with this fixed capital asset project, there's a lot of savings and getting the accuracy needed, right? Reducing those cycle counts, those inventories that are necessary to run the business. But now there's also analytics and there's view and intelligence that can be derived from that the folks here at DENSO can take up through each level of the organization and understand, ways to improve the overall business, right? Likewise, on the operational side, when we get into the operational projects, it's going to be the same. So how do we improve quality? How do we improve on-time delivery? Again, better utilization of assets and people, right? And then having these measurable ROIs, the qualitative metrics that Jonathan covered. And then finally, that all creates a competitive advantage, right? So in this, with these systems, having these through your through the business, now you've got things that put you above your competition, and you get some advantages, not just in efficiencies, but in service levels and visibility, and that plays out not just internally but externally as well. So what are some use cases? What are some things that are again, speculating a little here, but possibly in the future, things that we're looking at, things that could be useful? Well, one of kind of low-hanging fruit would be tool tracking on the manufacturing side. So, we talked about fixed capital assets, but there's other assets that are used in these facilities that should be tracked and need to be tracked. And similarly, there's challenges when you don't have these things and you need them. It drives up costs. It wastes time. So where are my tools? Where are my, sometimes these are tools for building. Sometimes these are things like dies and other things that need to be tracked to enable production, right? And then sometimes, these things, when they can't be found or can't be found in a timely manner or between shifts, it causes problems. So increases operating costs. And so these are things we're looking at and saying, okay, how do we start working with more tool tracking outside of just the large fixed capital assets? Other things, again, the work in progress, right? The WIP tracking through the manufacturing. Sometimes these are individual parts. Sometimes these are containers of parts. These are other things. And where are they at in my production process? So this is something at RFID Know we've worked with a number of system integrators that are doing WIP tracking across a variety of manufacturings. Some of these are automotive parts. Some of these are likewise just retail goods that are being manufactured. So some of these are in other industries like healthcare and medical industries. And so it all plays out around the same. In this case, normally we're using conveyor tunnels or we're using choke points. Sometimes it's workstation cells. We've got a picture of the DENSO UR40 here. So utilizing that fixed infrastructure where it's hands-free in this case, scanning, where the operator is just going about their normal work, and yet that RFID visibility is across the manufacturing lines, and you're able to see what is where at what time, watch how things move through the process. And again, that's going to give you better visibility, reduce costs. But there are integrations needed, right? So system integration partners come in and typically will interface to the warehouse management systems or the ERPs so that they can, those systems can ingest the data. And finally, container tracking. So this is something we've been working on for years, and tracking of dunnage and gaylords and different types of containers, plastic containers, metal containers. But the idea here is there's lots of missing, lost containers, costs associated with disposable packaging when those containers aren't available, can't be found. And these units are identical. So you ship them out and they look like the same units from other companies. They come back. You don't know what's coming in, what's coming back. You can't really track it. So RFID is a really good way to track those containers. What you see here is we've got the scan pallet that could be used in an automated way with AGVs and in collaboration with the RFID gates that are tracking the containers as they go in and out of the gates. And so these are things we're looking at in the future, saying how do we again, lower operating costs and have accountability for the container returns. When these things ship out, we've now traced exactly to a serial number, this unique container is going to this place. And that puts the onus on the, again, the third party or the other facility or wherever these are going, that now they need to return those containers, right? They have to account for those containers. And again, these systems can interface in a number of different ways, but the whole idea here is accountability and reducing costs of the corrugated and disposable packaging, which is not only is it costly, but it's just not environmentally friendly. And so these are kind of some low hanging fruit. Once the fixed capital asset project is up and running, there's some other areas we're going to be exploring. And again, for any type of manufacturer, these are relevant concerns. So as we wrap up here, we've got a few more questions just to kind of again understand more about the audience and share more. In this case, so this question, poll number 4, is, what would be the most valuable outcome of an RFID solution for your business? So looking at your business, where your stakeholder, what do you think is the most valuable outcome? Is it the labor hours saved, compliance? Depending on which industry you're in, this could be very important. Just higher inventory accuracies, or is it productivity gains or gains? So give you guys a few moments. All right, so interesting, higher inventory accuracy. So right around 50% said higher inventory accuracy. We had 29% for productivity gains and 21% for labor hours saved. So again, that accuracy, it's one of those situations where your inventory could be wrong before you even finish it. And so again, automating the process as much as possible yields higher accuracy. And so that's great to see. And that's what we've seen in this project. So do you see RFID as a must-have technology for your industry within the next 3 to 5 years? So again, a variety of industries that are represented here, but is this something that is just coming onto your radar, or is this absolutely must-have in the, let's say, the medium range here of 3 to 5 years? So yes, absolutely was 57%. We see maybe, depending on ROI, at 29%. And no, not a priority at 14%. So thank you for those insights. And then let's get into the Q&A. So Bethany, if you want to maybe moderate this and come up with some of the questions that I know some were submitted upon registration, and then we have several that are also in the chat. So if you want to maybe kind of go through those and ask, and we'll respond accordingly.
All right, so thank you everyone for all of the questions submitted. The first question we have today is, how long did the RFID implementation take from start to finish?
It's a good question. So we initially started with the challenge from management, asking us to reduce the man-hour count to support operational efficiency, to eliminate as much as possible having associates coming on the weekend, getting paid overtime, shutting lines down. Some of our operations do run 3 shifts, 7 days a week, which makes it very challenging with safety requirements, not allowing man and machine in the same area when they're operating. So that man-hour reduction was key in order for us not have to do any type of safety stock buildup in order to meet customer requirements, but still, become compliant with our policies and statutory requirements. I would say that from when we first started this project to pilot, it was roughly a year. And that was more or less meeting with each of the locations, ensuring we understood what was being done at each facility, and within each facility, what was being done in each department, and making sure we had a total picture before we proposed a standard and a solution. There was multiple interactions with potential partners, and it was challenging to say the least. Everyone wanted to come and sell us RFID for everything from top to bottom, from wall to wall. And that's not what we wanted to do within DENSO. We wanted to start with a core solution that had an ROI. We wanted to understand some of the implications within DENSO itself. We have a lot of legacy systems. We have a lot of cloud systems. We have a lot of different requirements based on the manufacturing that's being done at specific facilities. We wanted to make sure that we were in covering everything, understanding the limitations, getting the agreement between all the partners and parties across DENSO, and releasing this slowly and successfully. So once we selected the partners from both the software side, I mentioned that was Midmo, and then our integrator, RFID No, and Joe and his team, we were able to go from a high level idea to a pilot within, I'd say, a month and a half when we got the go from management. And then from that pilot results, building the business case and planning the retagging of all the assets across the facilities was an additional 3 months, roughly. So, I mean, once we narrowed down what the goals were, the objectives, and had everything in place, it was probably about a 5-month start to finish, and we were live up and scanning.
All right, and then our next question today, what was the timeline for user adoption and how was it encouraged?
This is one I'm laughing at a little bit here. So I learned very quickly that there are different levels of ownership across our departments and our divisions. Our core teams that were involved in the pilot, the adoption was very high. We didn't see really any challenges. They were very thoughtful on asking for wish list items, but they followed the instructions as they were written. They trained their users with instructions as written. And the same held true with a lot of the rollout region wide. Now, there were select groups that did not have that much ownership and professionalism and tracking within their divisions or groups. So we had to pivot a little bit and offer additional trainings and post optional office hours out there 3 days a week for 2 months. So at their schedule, they could join and ask questions. Some of these members maybe didn't attend the many trainings that were offered at the start of the rollout. Others just joined the company more recently. So it was a little bit of a learning curve on my side from a project management standpoint, but what holds true in all of digital transformation and projects that I found over the years is that if you bring a solution to a member and it makes their life easier, it is going to be highly successful and adopted. If you are shifting responsibilities from one person to another, you are not going to get them to change and you are not going to have a very high user adoption rate. So that user acceptance, that user interaction with what you're implementing is key to the success of any project.
All right, and then our next question here, did you already have a barcode system in place?
Good question. This was completely non-standard across all of our plants. There were divisions and departments that had QR codes. There were divisions and departments that had barcodes. There were many divisions and departments that had absolutely nothing except a tag with a number on it, the asset number or tag number. So that was part of the lengthy detail gathering phase, ensuring we understood what everyone was doing, what everyone required, and that allowed us to, at one time, plan for the rollout across the entire region rather than focusing just on DMTN requirements.
All right, and then our next question, how do you identify and handle missing or unreadable tags?
So this is all very new within DENSO. We have given best practice guidance. This is part of our training and our continued education as we roll this out. Tags should not be placed where they are going to get smashed. If it's an environment that's a harsh environment, our standard label tags on metal are not the ideal solution. That would be a durable tag option, and we have multiple offerings there. There were a few areas where we had to work with the users to, educate them. We want to place the tags on the HMIs or the computers on a line. We want to place the tags towards aisleways so they're picked up a little easier. We want to place the tags where it's not inside of machines so that the UHF can awaken that tag and collect the hex number from it. We have not had any issues with our printed tags not being readable at this point. Long term, if they get damaged, we have a business process to have those replaced. But we have not come across issues on our capital assets where the tags are getting destroyed at any point.
There also is a backup for human readable and 2D QR code. So if there were ever an instance where the tag was put into an environment that was not friendly in way of heat or pressure or something like that, or if the tag was physically damaged, such that the RFID chip wasn't legible, digitally legible, there is a backup human readable and QR code option. But again, that hasn't, because of the user training and because of the process, that's not been an issue.
All right, and then our next question from our audience, how did you get the GPS data inside a facility?
Very good question. So it's not entirely accurate to a pinpoint location. It is wherever the handheld is providing the GPS location is what's being recorded at the time of the scan. So that means if I am 50 feet away from the asset tag that's being read, it's not giving me the location of that asset tag itself. It's giving me the location of the handheld. We have not taken this a whole lot further, but DENSO has some proprietary technology where we can locate mobile devices within our facility, and we can get it down to a pinpoint location. And that's something we may leverage as we go forward. It's not part of this first phase. Now, the handheld and the requirements for location is telling us which facility it's in. We know the city, we know the state, we know the building and the quadrant of the building. We don't necessarily know that actual GPS coordinate. It's not a requirement from us. If we know it's in Maryville, Tennessee, or Southfield, Michigan, or Battle Creek, Michigan, that's enough for us to be compliant. It would be nice to know exactly where that asset was, and that's something we're looking at options for. I know there is other methodologies that we spoke about in our requirements gathering, and maybe Joe could speak a little bit to that. But having some of the pillars within the plant be marked with RFID and leveraging the location of the pillars with the location of the tag scanning, using that data to approximate locations within the plant. Basically building a quadrant or a grid system on the floor across the plant.
Yeah, and it hasn't been done yet. But again, today, as Jonathan said, it's just the GPS coming out of the valid point system, the mobile device, so the DENSO M80 device is providing GPS, and that feeds into the system, and it's good enough. It gives really good accuracy, or good enough accuracy to get us down to the building, the department, so we know that that asset still is in service.
And it hasn't moved, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then another question we have here concerning the RFID and portal scanners and tracking asset movement. Have you seen a reduction in theft, and has this application assisted in monitoring asset recalls?
So it's still those, that part we said kind of going forward, we're going to be looking at some of the fixed infrastructure. That's something that's not in play right now. It's just the mobile devices. And so, theft wasn't the largest concern of this project. It's more understanding inventory and understanding what, again, is still in service, what are the fixed capital assets in service. So, and again, in the future, those are things that could be, considered, but that wasn't one of the KPIs of this project, and theft has not been an issue.
I'll take that a little further. Yeah, we don't have theft issues with our capital assets. There's really nothing on site in a manufacturing facility within DENSO where someone can, Johnny Cash lunchbox it out at the facility. Quite frankly speaking, it's not an issue for us at our core operations level. With that said, we do have variance in our spare parts crib. So where we have components, high cost components on standby for when a machine goes down, needs repair, maintenance, we run 3 shifts. The first shift is educated. The first shift has been here a long time. The first shift follows processes. When we get into the second and third shift, these are newer members, maybe not familiar with processes. A machine goes down. They don't know what the processes are, but they know the component that they need is over in the spare parts crib. They go in there, they pull it. They don't fill out any paperwork where accounting can move that, inventory is updated, et cetera. So we have a variance issue within accounting for people that are taking parts out and not following the business process. One of our next steps is actually tagging all of our spare parts and doing a gateway portal scanner from the spare parts crib. That way, when someone passes through there, that asset is being tagged, that asset is being scanned, and that data is being available every day to the next shift. So once a day, once a week, we can review what has been actually pulled based on the RFID scans and what has actually been filed, removed from the inventory. And we can reconcile that at whatever frequency works for that department. So if you have an issue with theft at your location and you do have, a portal scanner at the human exits, it's very possible that you could pick those up and address those quickly. I've even seen some of these scanners be able to take pictures if it's integrated correctly. So you can visualize the person that walked through the gateway with the component, and we know who to follow up with.
And that all feeds back to that question about, the valuable outcome is 50% of people said inventory accuracy. So
Absolutely.
we see that as a very valuable next step.
All right, and then our next question, who developed the software to manage the RFID readers and handle data integration with the MES/ERP systems?
Great question. Great question. So working with Joe from RFID Know, he connected us with a company called Nidmo, Nidmo, and they had an out-of-the-box middleware solution that was already capable of running on an Android operating system. Their app is available on the Google Store. It's called ValidPoint, and then their foundation of their system is it's hosted in the cloud. It's called Motion View. So we were able to meet with Midmo. It was David and his team, and they were able to customize the needs, customize their system to give us the needs in an organized fashion, the data. So we have APIs that are set up out of their system that are triggering updates hourly. It's updating our Domo. We're consuming that data. The architecture between the Midmo systems and DENSO systems is actually owned by my team. It's the digital transformation team within the finance group. So we have IT finance professionals that work with these ETL tools like Domo. They work with ETL tools like Alteryx. We've used these in other operations and processes for many years. So for us within our group, we were able to own that separate from IT, and we were able to design the data transfer processes, manipulate everything we wanted to do to reach the outcome. In some cases, we had challenges where users weren't following the instruction. As I mentioned, we offered many trainings. We reached out to Midmo, and we've locked down some of the functionality within the scanner. That way it is error proofing if they choose not to read the work instructions before picking up the app and following the 4-step process. But it's been very successful. I mean, at the end of the day, this is just a giant Excel sheet or database, and we're able to join it on a commonality between the data sets. So the asset number, the hex number, the location, all of these custom fields we needed were already able to be imported into the motion view data.
All right, and then we're going to get into our last question for today. What were the major challenges faced during implementation? Were they primarily cultural, technical, or commercial? And what advice would you give to others looking to implement a similar RFID solution?
Coming from a finance perspective, the hardest was the ROI. Getting quotes from some of the larger companies that wanted to offer white glove services and do RFID from end to end. It's not feasible in any of our manufacturing facilities as a one time. It's got to be a phased approach. So, getting with the right integrators from a software perspective and a hardware perspective was key. Building out that business case, doing a proof of concept with each of these companies, seeing the successes, asking the detailed questions, getting the comfort that you're picking the right members. And then once the POC gives you that confidence, go for the pilot, get a commitment for a low amount. Very common for these guys to come on site and support, understand your needs, provide solutions. There's been a lot of insightful recommendations from both Joe and from Midmo along the way. Some of the things where users came to us after this was in production, they're doing the inventory and they're like, well, I wish this, I wish that. We were able to, accumulate a Kaizen list, a PDCA list, and work with Midmo to alleviate some of these wants. And they've offered even better recommendations to give us more visibility, more clarity on the scanner, faster access to data, and Joe at the same time. We're talking about AGV scanners that can go around our facility, so no one's physically doing the scanning. And that proactive approach to monitoring the asset movement is key for us not to have like sudden P&L impacts at the end of the year when we do an annual count. If we know about it in the beginning of the year, it's a significant P&L impact because an asset was disposed, it was moved, et cetera. We're able to adjust our spending to meet our requirements and where we need to be from a planning and a financial standpoint.
And if I could add I would say what really helped was the different departments across DENSO. Jonathan is a stakeholder, Kevin helping from DENSO Products America, and working across those different departments and this level of collaboration and willingness from everybody to step up and help the projects happen and be successful has been great. As Jonathan mentioned, the flexibility of Midmo as a software integration partner to both on the application and middleware layer to meet the needs of Jonathan's team, even as the needs weren't fully, let's say, recognized or known in the very early stages, 2 years ago or whenever this started to really where we are today has been just phenomenal. So I think it's that just the can-do attitude of the entire team and everybody moving towards the same target of saying we need this to happen, we want this to happen, and I think that's kind of what's pushed us through the initial testing, proof of concept, pilot, through the production.
Agile handling and trying to get everyone what they need, right? Even if it's not what finance needs. So from a technical standpoint, I'd say, my team is very capable on the data side at the basics and not having to go through the typical corporate IT process, modifying your ERP systems. That lengthens the project, that increase the costs of these projects. Being able to leverage that middleware and connect it with our existing tools was what gave us the ability to meet a phenomenal ROI on this. And just having this technology in people's hands, we've already had a number of people come up and talk, how do I get this on dunnage? How do I get this on spare parts? It's really inspired a lot of the production floor to think deeply on use cases. And then we're going to be pivoting and supporting those members on some of their initiatives as well.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for all of those questions. We tried to get through as many as possible. If you guys have any more questions for our speakers that we didn't get to answer today, you can reach out to them through the information that we have listed on the screen today.
Thank you so much for joining, everybody.